Hello and welcome to Talking Dogs on a Monday. And for the weekend that was in it, we had to bring in a true blue dub like myself because it was a big weekend, Barry. Dublin confirmed their status as the best dual county in the country, giving Limerick a hiding with 14 men. And then, of course, turning over Cork. But sure, that's by the by. I assume you had a good night in the commentary box on Saturday, informing the folks of the heroics of the Dubs.
Oh, I love to do it just to annoy everybody downstairs. The first person I met over in car park was Pat Buckley. Bad start to the night, he says. Limerick were bet by the Dubs. And then, I loved I loved giving everybody the updates. There's 3 minutes to go. Dublin are now three up for those of you that are interested. And you could hear the few grumbles downstairs. There wasn't too many people interested, even though it is a Dublin stadium. But sure, look, what else could I wear today? This, and I just had to hang that up in the background just to annoy a couple of viewers. But I wouldn't say we're the best dual county just yet. We'll pipe down for the time being.
I was in Galway on a rare night out, a family occasion. I was sitting with my brother-in-law downstairs in the bar, and he really is a Dublin hurling fan. Like, this is a fellow who played Dublin hurling, who's like very much a hurler rather than a footballer. And we had some crack. There was a lad there watching. He was obviously at a wedding or something. Had snuck into the bar. A Limerick man. He was shouting, "Oh, it doesn't matter, lads. We're second half team, 14 men. No problem here. No problem here." And we went searching for him afterwards. We got him, and hands were shook. Anyway, a great weekend for Dublin GAA, and I'm sure everyone watching this is delighted with that because the Dubs are very popular, Barry. I know you know that from experience.
Yeah, no, everybody wishes us well every year. It's you know it as well, like being a Man United fan, you either love them or hate them, but it's yeah, Dublin against the world. And yeah, we could have I don't think it's been done in a long time, has it? Hurling and football double. If you're going back, what? We must be going back. Were Cork the last team to do it in the
They would
late
have done it.
80s
Did
and
they do it
90s?
about? They did it in the late '90s. No, no. Am I wrong? Oh, I don't know. It's a while ago. Anyway, all I can say is Barry, as we say in Man United, hated, adored, but never ignored. All right, let's move on to the dogs themselves. Let's move on to the dogs themselves. You were in the commentary box on Saturday night, and I'll tell you what, you were called into duty because some cracking racing. We'll get to the Corn Cuchulainn in a moment because one of the heats there was particularly hot. But the final of the Shelbourne 550 was the feature in terms of monetary value, and we saw what we've been expecting to see from Ballinabola Joe after his exploits in the early rounds of the English Greyhound Derby. Finally got loose and took off in the final to land the prize in some style. It was an emphatic display by a Greyhound who really does have Derby prospects now.
Yeah, he does, and another one of these wide seeds as well, which is always a big help. And look, we all seen how well he ran over in Toaster in a couple of rounds of the English Derby. One night in particular, he was excellent around there, and even the couple of nights he's been beaten Shelbourne Park. Do you know who he reminded me of? And his markings will probably sort of allude to that. It was Grangeview 10. He's a bit of Grangeview 10 sort of written all over him. He's that fawn dog with that brute sort of early pace. And look, he got a starting right on Saturday night and absolutely flew into the corner. That 29:37, I don't know officially if it's the fastest run of the year so far, but I think it's right up there. I think it might have been a 29:20 odd done by a
Yeah,
dog.
Randolph
Uh,
Scott's
Randolph Scott,
29:25.
yeah, in the Easter Cup, but like 29:37. And look, this is going to sound stupid. Most of what you say is pretty stupid, but that track didn't look to be absolutely on fire on Saturday night. It just looked a little bit tacky, sort of. I know Hotwood done 28:19 towards the end of the night, but that track can change from race to race, as we know. I thought
It's
that was
very rare, Barry. It's very rare at any other time of the year, bar Derby, that anything does sub 29:40 for 550 yards. Like, that sums it up. Like in a classic like the Easter Cup, maybe two dogs broke 29:40. Ballinabola Joe's after doing it. What impressed me so much was the manner in which he ran from the third bend home. Because we know he has the brute early speed, but you look at him one or two nights in English Derby going like he's gonna like 550 yards will test him. Not a bit of it. He absolutely ran to the line. He's three and a half clear at the third bend. He wins five and a half. I was very taken by the display.
Yeah, it was a huge run. I thought going into the third bend he might tie up a little bit. Left cornerback is strong enough when he's out in front. I know he wasn't in front the other night, but he's a strong enough dog. His run last week was huge, left cornerback. But yeah, you got to be impressed the way he went past the line. And I still think the track at that stage was a little bit tacky as well. The same as the Corn Cuchulainn, which we'll touch on later on. But yeah, huge run. I know Pat Buckley is quite sweet, and I said it to him just before the first round of this competition. Do you like this fella? And he sort of gave me the nod without saying much. So he's very sweet, and it's easy to see why. He's still quite lightly raced, and he's got a massive future. It was unfortunate to see Razalaz pick up an injury. Hopefully he's okay. But yeah, look, it was a cracking competition. Left corner back, as I mentioned, he ran a blinder last week, clocking 29:47. He was well ahead of Edward and Ballinabola Joe on the clock. I know they came together a little bit around the bottom bends, but he lost nothing in defeat. I'm sure he'll still head to all the big competitions. And Rural Lana, I know you're a fan of hers. She took an absolute flyer She just doesn't have the early pace of these real top class dogs. But
I don't think she wants to be in there either, Barry. Like the first thing she
no,
does
she
is
moved to
take
the
her out.
middle of the track. Yeah,
Like by moving to the middle, she actually left a gap for left corner back, who, in fairness to him, like he's done a 344 and a 347 in the previous two rounds. He did a 356. You know, the one night he didn't need it because if he had come away racing, he could well have been there challenging Balnabola Joe. Could have been a different contest. I wouldn't take anything away from his display, but yeah, he charged up the inside, as you said. Rural Anna, she just turned right at traps. She moved to the middle, and even on the corner, she just kept going wide. So you'd wonder where she wants to be drawn. Like she certainly doesn't want to be drawn inside, but she probably doesn't have the early to clear them from the outside. So it'd be interesting to see. I think she was one that probably wants a bit further. I wasn't overly impressed with her run on Saturday night. I think there's much better to come from her. 30-10. I think she'd do that with her eyes closed. I think she's a 29-50 bitch, but just given all that happened in the race, just didn't quite go for her. Upper Horgan actually ran well to get as close as he did to Rural Lana. Snazzy Boss didn't happen from an, as you mentioned, Razzle Dazzle Edward. But listen, if there's the two greyhounds to take out of it, there's 6-4 joint favourites, Balnabola Joe and left corner back. But I think there's just that bit of star quality about Balnabola Joe.
yeah, there is undoubtedly. Like, and as you say, he has that brute early pace. He really did remind me of Brainview 10. And look, when you're doing 29-37 and you have that early pace, you're a wide seed. You're going to go a long way in all the big competitions. I just want to mention Upper Horgan as well. You touched on him there. I thought he ran a cracker. He's still very young. He's only in August 23 for James O'Regan. He's a wonderful pedigree as well. Ballyback Orna. She was a great bitch and thrown some good ones as well. So I know he went off 10-1, but if he was trained by a Graham Hollander, so like it's no disrespect to James O'Regan, he wouldn't have been 10-1 on the night. And I still think he's a dog with a nice future, that Upper Horgan.
You often find these dogs that are just aren't exposed to Shelbourne Park, that they're often overlooked a little bit. Even like you mentioned, even Graham Holland's dogs, they haven't, like you look at Carrickmore Freya. Like she won a big price
Mm.
in the first two rounds of the yoke, or she won a couple of big prices in rounds of the yokes. Considering it's just the fact that she wasn't exposed to Shelbourne Park, we didn't sort of know her. And you know, Teddy dictates so much that happens in Shelbourne Park, and if he hasn't seen them, he sort of just gives them a chance, you know, that sort of way. Unless it's unless it's a stinky one, but like you go into this type of company, you can be as stinky as you like. You're going to need to be able to run to win. He's yet to win at Shelbourne Park, but I have a feeling that that'll come very soon, or certainly when he gets the opportunity again. Given his age, I assume he'll be back in Shelbourne Park very shortly, maybe for the Puppy Derby, which we can say this year is a Puppy Derby. It's a long time since we've had a Puppy Derby, but yeah, this year will be a Puppy Derby, and you'd imagine Upper Horgan will be amongst the entries for that. No, best luck to all those in the final of Shelbourne Champion 550, but a very worthy winner in Balnabola Joe, and it's been a bit of a conveyor belt for Brendan Murphy. You know, like this ball, it's out of Balnabola Ruby, who was of course a sister to Balnabola Ed, Doll's Lady, going back that way. Like Brendan Murphy's producing them, and the goods are there. Just it seems every few months they're producing one.
Yeah, look, they're hard to find. So when you do get a line that's right, you got to make the most of it, and he certainly is. Like his dogs have been flying in recent years, and look, long may it continue for him. You know, he had great luck with or sorry, a bit of bad luck with what's the dog that broke down in the semi-final, Balnabola. We call it Balnabola Jim, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, he brought him to great places, and he was very unlucky not to make an Irish Derby final. It didn't quite go well for him in Toaster, and look, he showed bits and pieces of form back here in the 600. So he's some lovely dogs, but yeah, it doesn't always last forever, you know. But long may it last for him at the moment. He's having a great run of things.
Yeah, no, good breed, and continues to produce. Let's get on to the Corn Cuchulainn. Two wonderful semi-finals, both won in very different fashion, of course. The opening heat, Braveheart Bambi got the better of Keelan's Joker and Clona Ice. Bit of a pincer movement up the run in. Clona Ice wanting out, and Braveheart Bambi wanting in. It was like Keelan's Joker was the meat in the comrade sandwiches, little comrades on either side of him. Very tight finish, half length and a half length. In the end, Braveheart Bambi made it 3 from 3 over the 750-yard trip in the conditions, given the fact that she was so far off the pace, to do 41-43 is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, as I say, I still don't think the track was flying that night. It was a huge run by her. I actually had a few quid on Keelan's Joker, so it was a tough one to commentate on because I was never comfortable, even into the fifth bend when Clone Ice closed the door and they're going, she's going to come again. She's going to
You
come
hinted
again.
at it off the second bend or
Yeah,
off the fourth bend. You don't. Or she has a part to play in this from there.
yeah, it's not
And
over. Yeah, especially when you're on the one in front. But yeah, let's just talk about Braveheart Bambi first of all. Like she's 3 from 3 now over the trip. She does lack that little bit of tactical speed, I suppose, as it showed into the fifth bench. Couldn't quite get up the inside of her brother Clona Ice, but she stays forever. She really does, and she's unbeaten over the trip now. She's a good draw in the final. We'll touch on that in a minute, but she was very, very good again. She was maybe what 6-7 behind him, passing the stands the first time, and even at that, you knew she still had a chance. And look, she's doing 41-43 in defeat. She definitely lost at least two lengths into the fifth bend when she was forced to check up when she tried to get up the inside of Clonagh Ice, and she switched wide to the outside on the run to home and just drifted back in towards the finish line. She went on about her business then, no bother after that. But yeah, it was a huge run by her. As I say, 3 from 3 over the distance, and you can never rule her out in any stage of the race once she turns within 5 or 6 of the lead. I think this year's Corn Cuchulainn, maybe with the exception of Droopy's Comrade, there's not that massive finisher over 6 bends, and she's got a big chance in the final. Huge run. Keelan's Joker, I like this dog. He's able to take that bang break over 750. He's done it a couple of times. Didn't quite do it now, in fairness, on Saturday night. I think he's went up to the corner in maybe a 1360 before, sorry, to halfway 1360 before. I think he done a 1378 there on Saturday night, and that 41-46 was his best run. So there's a little bit better to come from Keelan's Joker. As I say, it's very important in that 750. If you can bang out and get to the front over there, and you're a really capable dog like Keelan's Joker, you have a big chance. He's got a bad draw, I think, on Saturday night. And Clonagh Ice, look, he's only had 2 runs over the distance. Again, he's only beat a length. You just worry about him. Has he got that break in him? Like, you'd even look at his 4 bend form.
I assumed when he went over this trip that he'd be pinging, and then
Yeah,
maybe
he's not.
crying out for the line, but showing unbelievable pace to go clear. And one of them type of dogs. As it is, he's just leaving himself too much to do. Like, he showed lots of pace tonight, but even then, there was points in the race where it seemed like he didn't know what to do. To go in, to go out, and he was just doing silly things. Like he probably threw away a length or two himself in running. He could easily have won the race, but just maybe a little bit of immaturity still there. That'll come, especially given the fact that he's coming from off the pace every night. He should be learning. But who's to say he won't take a ping? Did Haka Carlo take a ping a couple of years back when he hadn't been, and all of a sudden was a big player? So just don't be surprised if Clonagh Ice turns a bit closer. But I see what you're saying about him.
Yeah, look, when you look at all his form, even around Toaster, I think he was 424, 416. I think he's had 3 goals at Shelbourne Park, 525. You're talking 220s, 227. You're just struggling to see where that 202 is going to come for, or 206. And I think he'll have to be in front if he's to win it. He's not. I don't think he's going to pick up a JT Craze. He's going to have to be 4 lengths clear of Braveheart Bambi. And I think he'll struggle to pick up a Keelan's Joker, as he showed there on the weekend. Look, he's an incredibly fast greyhound, but I think he will need to lead here if he's to have a chance. And I just can't see how he's going to flash out and do that. But he's with a decent trainer, so you never know.
Yeah, got tight at the finish. All okay. You can't see from the videos. I wasn't there, obviously, enough. And first instinct, all okay. Just
Yeah,
in
100%.
in parts of the track where they didn't want to be.
Yeah, I was happy enough with Braveheart Bambi. Look, she's got a bit of history, and people are maybe looking at her with one eye on her, but I thought she was fine. She drifted to the outside of the track. She came back in. Look, she's after running 749 yards at that stage. She went back towards the inside. And most importantly for me, she went on about her business into the escape. So I've absolutely no issues with it. And we've got a great view up there, up in the stands. We're high. We're looking down on the finish line. So I'd no issues with the race. Yeah, I thought she went on about her business for him.
At our age now, it's not as good as views used to be, get ready, like the old eyesight isn't great anymore.
Well, we have binoculars, so we're all right.
Moving on to the second semi-final of the Donald Beatty Memorial Corn Cuchulainn, and a very different victory here, this time for JT Craze, 41-74, again tied up a little bit in the closing yards, but it was as comfortable a length victory as you can ever have. It never at any point looked like he was going to be beaten. He is just, you really wish he was this sharp over 4 bends, because he is so talented, so versatile. Versatility is the one term I was going to use for Keelan's Joker, but this JT Craze, like, he's classic pace over 4 bends. He's classic pace and enough strength to get him through over this trip. He did a couple of big runs at the back end of last year in heavy tracks in Shelbourne Park, 41-63 on Derby final night, and like wet and windy and breezy and disgusting night. And he did a 41-92 at the Winter Racing Festival. Like, I was expecting at this time of the year he'd be doing 41-30s, and I wouldn't put him past him yet. As you say, interesting to say that's a bit sticky. What I noticed about the track the previous week was dogs that had no problem staying were doing clocks. Dogs that had little stamina issues weren't doing the clocks. Does that make sense? it's like it was taking just that bit more out of the dogs that don't stay. Could have been similar enough on Saturday night because the dogs that got home were still doing good clocks. Whereas JT Craze probably just struggled that last 25, 30 yards, does a 41.74. But if it had popped up 41.34, it wouldn't have been surprised to me.
Yeah, just going back to what you said about he never looked in danger. He did never look in danger until you give it the big eye and you say, and JT Craze is going to win, and you're calling it in commentary and you're going, oh, look, the truth, he's comrade, he's going to get there. Egg on
We've
my
all
face.
been there, Barry. We've all been there.
You've been there more than me. But yeah, look, he was never in danger. I know you look at the result and you go, he won by a length, but there was a big lack of early pace in this heat. And believe it or not, JT Craze was almost 3 lengths slower to the Lion this time around than he was last week. And yet he's gone, what, nearly half a second quicker on his run last week. And I don't think the track saved him there.
You put that down to trap 3 to trap 1, the ping.
Yeah, exactly. The ping effect, yeah. But look, it looked as though he came out every bit as quick on Saturday night. But look, Troopy's Comrade, Borner Viper, certainly they wouldn't be known for their early pace. Air Flyer actually gave him a chance in there for Hughie, and I thought he had a chance of sneaking around in front. If Craze was to miss it from trap 1, he didn't. He came out well, and once he led, he was always going to be very, very hard to pick up. It's only his second run since he's back from Toaster. And I think if we get a good week of weather, I think he's the one to beat next week in the final. Perfect draw on trap 1. I know that's going to allow Bambi to get a run after him, but I think he's the one to beat. Droopy's Comrade again, like he's like sort of the Richard Johnson and the Jimmy White of the sports world. If it hadn't been for Kiwono Charlie, he would have been such a star, wouldn't he? We'd be talking about him as one of the greatest stayers ever. But he ran an absolute.
Incidentally, Tono Charlie's supposed to be there next Saturday night. That'd be lovely.
Oh, he is. That's right. Sorry, yeah. There's a stake named after him on Friday night in there, a novice stake, or Thursday night, and then I was talking to Sharon Hunt a couple of weeks ago. He's going to be there on Saturday night for the parade. So yeah, great to see him there. But yeah, as I say, Droopy's Comrade, I'd say he was sick at the side of him, and he'd probably rock up and see him on Saturday night again and go, here we go again. Your man is back.
He was third in the classic last year, Droopy's Comrade, and in many ways, he's running cleaner this year than he did last year. Tommy always pointed out that he just did throw away a length or two on the corners. He seems to be running his corners a bit better. I'd say it was probably just a confidence issue this time last year, whereas just seems to be running that bit better. Now, obviously, his clocks aren't quite as good as last year, but I think that's down to the track rather than himself.
Yeah, it is. And Droopy's Comrade has that break in him. He does have a ping break in him. It's very, very rare, but he does have it. And here's a question for you. If they pass the stands level, Droopy's Comrade and Braveheart Bambi, and the two of them were a couple of lengths behind JT Craze, I think Droopy's Comrade can finish every bit as fast as Bambi.
All depends on that fifth, Ben, where the run is, what
gets
as they start to stack up, that's where it's going to get interesting. Yeah, and Airflyer back in third. Eugene and Rosemary having a good year. Every week it seems their dogs are running very, very well. Don't have an awful lot of dogs, but what they do have, they are running well. And best of luck to them in the final. But it's a cracking little final. We have to look forward to it. Obviously, JT Craze has got trap 1, so predicting what's going to happen in this race isn't very difficult. Like, we both expect JT Craze probably to go to front in the early yards, and then it's a case of just how close the likes of Braveheart, Bambi, Clona Ice, Droopy's Comrade can be. Coulin's Joker is probably going to give JT Craze most to think about for much of the way, and it'd be very interesting if the two of them did go hammer and tongs, whether they would see it out as well as they have been doing. It would be interesting. That could set it up for the likes of Braveheart, Bambi, or Droopy's Comrade, or indeed Clona Ice. Clona Ice will need to turn a bit closer, no question about it. It's an intriguing final, Barry.
It is, yeah. Look, I would have given Keelan Joker a big, big chance if he had been drawn maybe 2, 3, or 4, but I just think he's a little bit far out there, out in 6. He will have to take a flyer to get out in front. There's 3 of them that can go up well, isn't there? JT Craze, Air Flyer, and Keelan Joker. And Air Flyer, he definitely has to lead if he's to have a big chance. But yeah, it's JT Craze. He's got to draw, even if he traps level, he's going to go up well on the inside. And it all depends what happens between Braveheart, Bambi, and Droopy's Comrade, because whatever one of them is going to get relatively close to him, you'd imagine, heading up towards the stands the first time. So whatever's close enough to him is going to be the big danger. I think Clone Ice is a bad draw. He's between 2 fast starters over this trip in Air Flyer and Keelan Joker. And it's a cracking final. You can make a case for a lot of them. Obviously, JT Craze off the draw, but because he's going to be away and gone, it gives the likes of Braveheart, Bambi, and Droopy's Comrade a clear run of them in behind. So I'm sure Pat Buckley was happy with that draw with Braveheart, Bambi, and 2. So yeah, it is going to be a cracking final. It's JT Craze out in front, catch me if you can. And whenever one of the big guns turns in behind him, we'll have a big, big chance. But we wouldn't just rule out Keelan's Joker if he can take a flyer from 6. He's a small chance of that.
You'll have to put it down on paper for the job. I'll have to put it down on paper. What way are you going to side?
I just have to go with JT Crazy. He's been there, he's done it. The fact that he went a half a second quicker this week than last week, and he was still 20 spots slower to halfway, would tell you that he is improving. He's getting a little bit better week on week. Paul Hennessy's a good record in this competition, as we know. And I just thought
It
the
was
track
it
was a
was
little bit against
notable. It
him.
was notable. Price's Jet was a very similar dog,
Yeah, he was out
and
and gone, and he
and
held off that
he
Buckos.
produced his best by some margin in the final.
Yeah,
The
what was the
year
name
he
of the
won
bitch he
it.
held off? Buckos Karen, was it?
Buckos.
He used to fly from halfway.
She's a dam now. She's actually thrown reasonably well in England.
Do you not know the question? Oh my God, I
Buckos Brandy.
finally got them.
Buckos
Buckos
Brandy.
Brandy. So there
Buckos
you have your
Brandy.
earpiece on. They're all telling you Buckos
I,
Brandy is
I
Buckos
opened it
Brandy.
up. I opened it up. I got it here.
But yeah, so look, I've got to start aside with JT Craze, but it is a cracking final. I wish everybody all the best of luck. And that short run to the opening corner gives everybody a chance.
It does indeed. A couple of mentions on the undercard. Just a fine double at the end of the night for Jerry Holy and Omi Mist, who was so unlucky in her previous start, a real eye catcher.
Yeah.
She won at 4-1. Anyone that let her go off at 4-1 should be ashamed of themselves. Hot Wood won the finale at 5-1. He had a life. Kornikova was back in second. Lenny's Desire didn't happen for him in his return to Shelbourne Park, but much better to come from him. Probably over 550 yards, I would suggest, rather than 525 yards. And then earlier on the card, I thought there were a couple of decent displays. Sunshine Sue, I like the way he did it. Burst through into the opening corner. Seemed to lose his just a little bit of momentum for some reason into the back straight and had to come from behind to go into the front at the third bend and then stretched on to win by 7.5. He's obviously a son of Susie Sapphire. I get the impression there's an awful lot to come from this fella. I liked him one of the nights in Kilkenny, the night he won in 2880, and I think it's taken him a while to find his feet at Shelbourne Park. I think 550 yards will be the making of him. Just one to keep in mind. Although we'd probably be running over 525 yards for the foreseeable with the Puppy Derby coming up. And I thought Ballyhimmock and Ben won the opener in good style. Obviously, he had a little bit of luck in the opening corner, but he was in front at that point anyway, and winning in 31:05. You're not picked up too often in that sort of clock, but good racing on Saturday night. And of course, the man I'm speaking to now was on the microphone. Now on to Friday night, Barry. You weren't there. We are mentioning Friday nights rather than Thursday nights, Barry. I know the big winner of the week was Marlon Brandog on Thursday night for your good selves in the Barrystown Wheelie Syndicate. Well done. Nice to have a winner in Shelburne.
It was great. Look, as you know, I trained the majority of my own dogs, and it's a different experience when you have it in the syndicate with a few lads, and you enjoy it a little bit more because there's a bit of pressure off you, you know.
Well, they
But
wanted a proper trainer, didn't they?
that's exactly what happened. Yeah, I said we'll give it to put it down to Barry C, and it ended up with Barry Clancy instead of Barry Caul. But yeah, it's a different experience. It's yeah, as I say, there's a bit of pressure off you. You're in there more on the jolly up than anything else. And look, I know it's not a great grade. It's 8-4. It's a minor competition, but it was a great night. Everybody had a great crack, and it's a great way to get involved. He was relatively cheap dog, and the cost per month is not that much either when there's a few of us involved. So yeah, cracking night. Look, as I say, it was an A4, but it could have been an AA Open for us because it was just a bit of crack, you know. So we had a good night.
Yeah, we must mention the Friday night action at Shelbourne Park. We had the opening round of the not a race name you want to be calling in the middle of the contest. The Celtic Cooling, Refrigeration and Air Conditioning, the open unraced 525, and the one or two of these have already been slotted into the Derby betting, and it is no surprise. Marginally fastest was Ballymac Stud. Just behind him, Droopy's Painting. You had Magical Major and Mairead's Diamond, and they were just the four fastest heat winners. There was any amount of dogs that showed all sorts of promise in behind. Let's start with, I suppose, the fastest heat winner, Ballymac Stud, 28:12, just razor sharp to the opening corner. Looked at a proper greyhound. Really liked the runs of both the second and third. They're the first litter, the first runners out of Sing Along Sally. Both sons of Droopy Sydney, obviously littered comrades. Sing Along Sally, a Derby runner-up. She was a juvenile classic winner. She was a finalist in the Kirby. She was a star, and she's going to throw stars. But Ballymac Stud left them standing. He won by 5 lengths in 28:12. Another one coming from Liam Dowling's conveyor belt of champions.
Yeah, he was mighty impressive, wasn't he? As to were a lot of them on the night, but he seemed to show that flying early pace into the opening bend once he hit the ground. A stunning run. Ballymac Pete, it's their first litter, and actually another one of the litter won in, I think it was Tralee on Thursday or Friday night in 28:20, and they're still very, very young. So what a cracking litter they are. But yeah, visually to the eye, he was very, very impressive. The clock backed that up as well. you got to be happy with the runs of the second and third as well, like Made to Measure and Glengar Silent, as you mentioned as well. Wonderfully well bred by Sing Along Sally. Interesting enough, I seen Clona Sky had a winner on the night as well, and Sing Along Sally and Clona Sky went head to head in the Winter Racing Festival a couple of years ago. They're going to turn out to be two brilliant dams, but yeah, cracking one run. Even when you look back down the field, Ian, you see Bogger Bob, even out of Bogger Megan. There's incredible pedigrees in that race. But yeah, Ballymac stood 28-12. What can you say? What a debut! And he showed real early pace into the fence. So he's massive future.
I was just looking at the litter there, the Ballymac Peat litter. Um, the Ballymac Lake has won 2 from 3. Obviously, a finalist in the Dennis Linnan, was second in the Dennis Linnan. Has 28-23 in his card. Ballymac Kamala is the bit you were talking about. She ran very well down in Kilkenny. She is a 28.91 minus 20 in Kilkenny, 28.71, and she did 28.13 the other night in Tralee plus 10. But it's 28.13. That's only a grading tool. Ballymac Stud, the winner the other night, 28-12. And the other three yet to race, 1875 qualifying in Limerick, 1868 qualifying in Limerick, and the other one has qualified in Kilkenny in 29 42 minus 10. So not a bad start to Ballymac
The worst
Peace
of the litter.
as a brood. I'll be keeping an eye on the second litter, shall we say? Although the first litter have a fair bit to do in the coming months, you'd suggest. Keep an eye on them. On now to the second fastest heat winner, and it was Droopy's Painting, notably one of the big movers in the market. Believe it or not, one of the firms did price it up, and Droopy's Painting was, I think, it was a third of its price by the time it went to traps. 28.13, absolutely razor sharp. Did a massive third bend clock. It was a 15.85, just looked razor sharp. 28.13, and another one for Robert Gleeson for his long-standing owner Paul Allen, and also jointly owned by Michael Dunphy. That's always a good sign.
Yeah, once you see Michael Dunphy on the card, you know it's not going to be an A5 or an A6 after a couple of runs. But yeah, the word was out about this dog, wasn't it? There's lots of rumours going around about him, that he was quick. And even I went into my job on Saturday, and there's a couple of lads who wouldn't be that into Greyhound racing going, did you get on that Droopy's Painting? 12-1 into 4-1, I believe, was the price you're talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like, no. But look, an incredible performance. Took a flyer from trap one. It was a 4-dog race. Yeah, similar to the Ballymac Stud dog. What can you say? Very, very impressive. Beat a nice dog. Colours are blue for Pat Guilfoyle. Another one out of a fantastic litter, which we'll touch on. Kingshire now, Magical Mary. But Droopy's Painting himself. He's a half brother to Ballybop Nuts. I think he went over to. I think Mort used to have him. Mort Lee had him for
Maxine
a while.
Locke has him now.
Yeah, he ran really well over in England. In the Maiden Derby, I think he was just picked up by Hello Diego, and I think he might have won the first round of the English Derby for the syndicate and had to be withdrawn, unfortunately. But yeah, another one with a wonderful pedigree. Droopy's Flight Night as well. Robert had him. He started his stud career off well. We probably didn't get to see the best of him on the track, but yeah, another wonderful performance by Droopy's Painting.
He's a brother to Montana Shadow, who has changed hands. A dog that ran so well down in Kilkenny, for a big sum of money. He'll be running at the Juvenile Derby at Shelbourne Park himself, so it could well be taking on Droopy's Painting. Worth pointing out, the Juvenile or Puppy Derby has been put back a week to allow for these dogs in this competition to run in that stake. So well worth waiting for them, I assume, because this is hot. If the Puppy Derby's as hot as this, we'll be doing okay. The other heat winner that I want to mention, Magical Major. I think this is the one I'd take out of the competition myself. You talk about a lot of talk beforehand. This was the only dog I heard about in this underage stake from Toaster. 3 or 4 people said it to me, that he's obviously a brother of Magical Luca, who broke the track record yet again at Tralee on Friday night, 26.61 for the 500. Unbelievable. He remains unbeaten after 6 career starts. And this Magical Major is the second of the litter to run. And the talk was that he was 4 lengths faster than Magical Luca. And while he didn't go quite as fast as Luca has done yet, 28.23, and he looked, for me, a little bit more raw than the winners we've already mentioned. Looked like there was a lot more to come from this fellow. It'd be no surprise to me if he did 27.90 next week. I think this dog is a monster. I was so impressed with him. I thought the dog in second, Ballycown Milo, I know there was good money for this fellow. He ran very well in defeat, and Born Ranger lost his chance on the opening corner. I thought looks a bright prospect too. He's beaten 7 lengths. He's out of Doll's Flash. He was another sister to Balnabola Ed. But Magical Major, Barry, looks a proper tool, much like his brother Magical Luca.
Yeah, Magical Lucas 6 from 6 down in Tralee again with that track record. It's hard to equate that track record, but I think it equates to about 28 seconds if he's keeping going for that other 25 yards. So what a litter that is. And as you say,
If he's staying, it equates to 27.90. It's 130,
27.
130, 525 to 550. I always say it if they're still going at the line.
Yeah, but should we getting tired? We'll put him down for 28, 27.96 and we'll move on.
Fair enough.
But yeah, Magical Major, as you say, yeah, raw could be the right word. He didn't come out great. He came out okay. Actually, what was the sectional to the first bend? You can look at the sectional there while I'm
It
waffling
was
on.
220s. It was 224s,
Yeah, he didn't look to
223,
come out great, and then
222.
222. Seemed to take him a little bit of time to get going, but my God, once he hit sort of the line the first time, he really powered into that opening bend and showed great area pace and seemed to fly into the third bend and he wasn't stopping. Really, really powerful looking performance. But yeah, again, Ian, like what a pedigree. Magical Mary, what did she do on debut? 28-10 or
28,
something silly like
28-10 in Limerick, yeah.
yeah, something silly like that on her debut. She was a cracking bitch as well. King Sheeran wouldn't be the most stylish of sires, but look, if you go back maybe 2 years ago, we would have probably said the same about the Rovers Wildcat. He was getting the odd one here and there, and it was just that litter that Rachel Wheeler bred. What are they? Seaglass Shadow that just elevated him to a new level. And look, Magical Mary could be doing this for King Sheeran because this looks like a wonderful litter. I thought Born Ranger ran well back in third place. He lost his chance at the first bend, as you say, and Ballycam Milo ran well too back in second. But yeah, Magical Mailer, a lovely one for Packhill Foyle. And this time of the year, heading in towards derbies, Pat just seems to always rock up with a big, big, strong team. And he's going to
Yeah.
have the same again this year.
We're going to touch upon a couple of the others, but we do have to move on. We'll be back to this competition. But I do have to mention Murray's Diamond. It's just wonderful to see Fraser Black with a proper greyhound in his hands for Joe Horan, a combination that have produced many top class greyhounds in the past, of course. Joe was the first man who had Mairead's Island. Do you know what Mairead's Island became?
Something to do with an Oaks, was she? Is
Tyra
that one an
Sugar
Oaks?
Ray was renamed.
Oh, well, then she didn't
Murray's
win an
Island
Oaks.
was renamed Tyra Sugar. I think it was Murray's Island. It was renamed Tyra Sugar Ray. Well, this fellow quite similar in many ways to Tyra Sugar Ray. Wins 10 lengths. He really stretched on from halfway. 28-26. Just looked a very bright prospect for Fraser and for Joe. Well done to them. Out of Clonus Sky, as you mentioned, Barry. She was a top class performer. Like she's cool of any pearl going back to Litter Flutter. Like just an unbelievable pedigree.
Yeah, she was a great bitch. I was a big fan of her. She won the Cork Oaks. She won the Christmas Oaks. I think she won over 20,000 euro in prize money for Graham Holland and Kevin O'Brien, I believe. She was a cracking bitch. And look again, this sire, what's it, Droopy Sydney? He's still getting them, isn't he? Another very powerful performance, quite similar to Pat's dog, Packer Foyle's dog, the Magical Major dog, quite similar sort of a run. Two powerful sort of looking dogs, and yeah, he's another one with a big future.
Yeah, we could be talking about them for quite some time. There were a few dogs beaten as well that showed real promise. The other two heat winners in the clouds showed a lovely bit of early speed in the opening heat. He ran very well. I liked Riptide Troika in second spot as well. I thought he ran well.
Mhm.
And then Highview Paul won for the Merrymans. He's a nice dog, 28-68. That's a very fast litter. Two or three of them have gone very quick. There was one there a couple of weeks ago, came from a mile off the pace into winning 28.50s in Shelbourne Park. Looks a hell of a fast greyhound. I think he's Adam. I think he's Highview Adam. One of them actually ran the other night in Dundalk, I believe, and ran well. Is it Highview Adam or Highview Plan? No, Adam was the one that won in Dundalk the other night. It must be Highview Plan. Yeah, Highview Plan 28.55 in Shelbourne Park off at 2:28. It was actually 28.85, 30 slow, but like that was conservatively 30 slow. He'd done 28.66 the previous week coming from off the pace. He is a monstrous engine. Dog to keep an eye on Highview Plan. But yeah, his brother Highview Paul winning very well on debut. Cracking competition.
Adam and Paul, do you remember that film?
I do. I never saw it actually, believe it or not. I know the film, the one you're talking about, but I never saw it. And it's rare. I'm a big film watcher. Just a couple of other mentions on the night. Lucan Lepp opened his account, having finished second in the Champion Open race down Kilkenny. Ran very well to win in 28.55. But when you have a dog of that nature doing 28.55, it just sort of puts into perspective the runs of the unraced puppies. Unbelievable. We're going to move on, Barry. Just going to give the Tipperary Cup a brief mention. Obviously, it just got started. We'll come back to it in the coming weeks. But a monstrous run by Boyle Sports Blue. Like we know how fast this fellow can be. He doesn't often get his chance to show it. A dog with 27.98 around Shelbourne Park. He led at the final bend and wins 9.5 lengths in 28.51. That's a big run from a fast greyhound.
It is, and look, he had the two spins over 750, and it didn't go his way either time. He was led up by Keelan Shoker on debut, and Keelan Shoker is a very, very hard dog to pass, as we've seen. He's a finalist now, and for a dog to be expected to pass him on his debut was a big ask. And then I fancied him last time. I think it was in the first round of the Corn Cuchulainn when he was done no favours at the opening bend and lost all his chance. But yeah, huge run to win. If you were to pause the race at the third bend and see this and say this fella goes on and wins by 9.5, it's scarcely believable. Though 28.51, it was a huge run, and yeah, some other decent runs on the night as well.
Good to see Tars the Maasai back.
Yes, for Jeff Parnaby. Yeah, what a dog he's been for him. And yeah, look, he was so good from around Shelbourne Park last year in the Derby and some of the big nights in there. Great to see him back as well. But there was a couple of real old favourites running in the Tipperary Cup. I know we lost a couple of dogs, like a lot of Other News and Sid's Buttons in the open. I thought Moorestown Knight ran a cracker back in third place back in that race. Bogger Fium win, and KG Billy ran well in the opener, and we know him from Shelbourne Park time. I thought he ran well in the first race to qualify.
I want to mention Dashing Toro. He won his heat 28.75. It had been it's almost a year to the day since he last won a race. The last race he won was breaking the track record of Tralee in the semi-finals of the Race of Champions. So a long time between winning turns, and well overdue. He's a dog who's always kept good company. He's a massive engine, very fast greyhound, and hopefully this is just the first of a number of wins for him in the next while. Now we're going to switch our attention to Limerick on Saturday night, Barry. Obviously the time Club Derby was on. Two good heat winners. We'll get to the Treaty Cup in a moment. Firstly, the opening heat won by Rinwood Duke for Des Flaherty and the Flaherty family syndicate, a son of Pastana and Rinwood Pearl. Des has his dogs flying this year. Had a good bitch, ran well in the Oaks earlier in the year in Limerick. This fellow won in 28.72. He was pipped on the line in 28.67 in the previous round. He's got a lovely turn of early speed. Yes, he does sort of tie up a bit, but he's got tremendous early speed, Barry.
He does, and there's not going to be a lot in the final of this. It's quite wide open. But I just want to touch on the competition as a whole, and I think it is an incredible idea. It really is, and it's just worked out so well this year. To be running for €20,000 next week in the final of this, it's incredible. And just to quickly look at it, like Rinwood Duke is in October 21, and he's running for 20 grand next week. This is no disrespect to these dogs. Skippy Fantasy has 1 win from 11 in the final next week. Rob Hero, 53 races and rocks up in the final. Then you go to the second semi-final. Maid of Iron, who won that, she's currently graded A2, as too is Tipsy Ailby, who's only won 1 race, and Tally Ho Fly, who's in the final as well. Another dog to have only won 1 race and is currently graded A2. So nobody can complain. I know a lot of people complain about you're going to these A4 and A5 stakes and they're running 28.30 and 28.20 and whatever, and you've no chance. But this is an incredible incentive, and fair play to the lads for doing it. And I'd say this is the final they wanted. Everybody's in there with a chance, a massive pot. And yes, fair play to them, well done. It's worked out great for them. But back to the first semi-final, yeah, Rinwood Duke was all about early pace, showed good early pace to lead in 28.82. Skippy Fantasy and Rob's Hero closed well to the line. And look, I'm sure if you were the racing manager there, you could nearly throw these 3 in again next week, and nobody would have any complaints.
I'm not sure. I think I may have met Des a few years ago, but I'm friendly with Des now. We're regular texting partners.
We'll be friendly with him on Sunday morning if he wins.
And you know what? He has something in common with you, Barry.
Baldy, is he?
I was, if I said the words long suffering.
Oh, he's not a sport. We're not long suffering sports fans anymore. By the way, Europa League champions, so none of that more. No more.
The first man to text me at the final whistle was Des Flaherty after Spurs beat United in the Europa. We forget about it. We don't even mention it anymore. But yeah, long suffering Spurs man. Works at a school down in Galway, and he's actually very friendly with one of my wife's best friends, and got to know him through that. And listen, I would love nothing more for Des to land this pot. And by God, if he does, I'm booking a weekend in Galway, and I'm going to make sure he spends a few bob. All right.
I'll go with you. We'll have the sports AGM down there.
Well, in fairness, there's only about 80 in the country, so
that's true.
I thought you might know him.
Yeah.
Right, the second heat was Made of Iron, and again, all about early speed. Lenson Bocco out of She's Ordinary. That would go back to Joe Devlin's breeding. So, like, she'd be close enough related to a certain English Derby winner. Can you name it?
The laddie da.
I would say close enoughly bred. Oh yeah, well, Lenson Bocco, obviously enough. No, the dam I'd say is closely related to Thorn Falcon. Thorn
Oh,
Falcon.
Patrick Janssens, yeah,
Devon
yeah, yeah.
bred Thorn Falcon came out of in a Scorty, but Maid of Iron, lovely turn of early speed. Yes, was left clear on the opening corner, but if you're out in front, that can happen for you. And connections of Maid of Iron, Neely Jones will be hoping for something similar in the final.
Yeah, she's a nice bitch. She's won five races now at this stage. But yeah, as you say, it's all about early pace, quite similar to the first semi final. But if you look back at this bitch's form, she has got a 119 and a 124, and even though she made all there in the semi final, that was actually her worst start in the competition. So
Yeah.
she done a 131 and still led up. If she can get back to her one sort of 19s in the final, she could be very, very hard to pull back because, as I said, there's not an awful lot in between them. Tally Ho, Flyett, and Tipsy Albi were a little bit unlucky around the opening bend. There was a bit of trouble in behind, but look, I'm sure connections were just delighted to make it through to the final, and it should be a cracking night down there on Saturday night.
Yeah, I'm going to say last but not least, but we might just tip on one other thing after this. Um, we obviously had the semi-finals of the Treaty Cup, or second round, should I say, of the Treaty Cup. Three heats, obviously, what was it, four to qualify? Yeah, four to qualify for semi-finals. It's a long one, but what a run by Stone Park Brown. I, I I think it's safe to say this is what most people were expecting from him when we saw him running in the curb, that when he went sprinting. It's taken him a little while just to find his feet. He ran very well, obviously, in the Island Bridge at Shelbourne Park, but like even come to the final, like he was sent off 2-1, but probably were expecting others to beat him on that night. Just hadn't quite really hit the ground running and doing things right. This is more like it. 18-12 track record for the 350 yards. Just lightning fast.
Yeah, look, when he went into the Island Bridge sprint, I think he might have only had maybe 4 or 5 races. Would that be fair? And he was
Yeah,
running against
not
really,
even. I'd say you only had three races, two races.
yeah, and he was running against really, really seasoned top class sprinters, and it was always going to be difficult. And he showed glimpses of brilliance in it. But yeah, he's just starting to get his act together now, with more experience. And I can't believe the SP 9-4. My God, that looks some price now, doesn't it? But
Yeah.
he was exceptional. 18-12. It was, I forwarded you on the text, and it was Damo who sent me on 18-12. And you're looking at a force going, why is he sending me a 325 run saying wow? And I'm looking, oh Jesus, 350, Like anybody had a pup doing 18-12 or 325, you're happy enough, but 18-12 for 350. That's the fastest run ever in Ireland, I'd say, for 350, is it? 18-13, who done that? Gizmo Cash? Or was it 18-13? Some dog done. It might have been Born Warrior in a sprint.
Gizmo Cash has the record in Shelburne. I'm not sure what it's around that. It's around that. It's
Yeah,
very
I think
close to
Born
that.
Warrior done something like that in a sprint as well. Trial. Was it Born Warrior? I think it was. But yeah, look back to Storm Park Brown. It's about him.
You
Incredible
made
run.
you made a very valid point, Barry. Sprinting is a different animal. Like, dogs
Yeah.
can step up to 750 yards and just take it to it first night. 550, 525, 600, whatever. Sprinting is a very different animal, especially if they've had a few runs over 525 yards. You know, in a 525, the likes of him now, he could come out level and all of a sudden he goes, Grant, off I go. In a
Yeah.
sprint, it's just pure speed around you. And before you know it, there's a dog a length in front of you and a dog a length in front of you there, and you're going, Jesus, what happened here? It takes them a couple of races to get into it. We may well see this fellow just go on an unbelievable run. 18-12 around Limerick. Obviously, he's running a Treaty Cup now, but you'd suspect this fellow's going to rock up as one of the favourites for the Dundalk Barwon Racing Irish Sprint Cup. And if he does go through this competition in that sort of vein, yeah, he'll very much be one of the favourites. All of a sudden, we have a proper sprinting division.
Yeah, we do, and he's right up there. He's heading them as well. But yeah, he'd have to go to Dundalk. Let's see how he comes out of this first. But it's the logical step. An interesting runner in second there, Ian. I was just looking at his yesterday evening. I was looking at his breeding and his owner, Gundy, because he went off favourite, and I was going, "What's this dog that went off favourite to
I
beat
was I
Stone
was
Park
talking
Brown?"
to
But
Jamie McGee about him the other day. He sort
yeah,
of encouraged Patrick. He's obviously worked with Patrick Janssens, English Derby winning trainer this year, dual English Derby winner, and had said to him, "Go on, send that dog over to us, and we'll have a bit of sport with him." And Jamie likes him a lot. Now, obviously, he was left standing by Stone Park Brown, but you know. 1847 he does. It would nearly been good enough to win the other two heats. Not quite, but Jamie thinks a lot of him. Looks a really nice dog. He did a couple of nice runs. One good run there in Drumbo Park, and clearly a lot to come from him. But yeah, Doolin Princess was a sister to Glengar Bale, who is obviously making his name now as a bit of a sire as well. He's thrown some very nice ones. And she was out of Droopy Smasher. Not a pedigree associated with sprinting, but No, obviously can run a bit. The other two heat winners, very satisfactory, Barry, when you're looking at sprints and you see Quickway always led, very Quickway always led. Satin Milo, 85 pounds, a son of Jacob Tashadelic for Con Guiney. Jacob Tashadelic has turned into a proper sire, both of early speed and stamina. Of course, he's the sire of Ballyhooly Bruno, who won the Shelbourne Open 600, one or two of his comrades. Lemon Orla, obviously, is a big finisher as well. And then the other heat was won by Healy's Legacy in 1844 for Vincent McKenna. Vincent has a great record with sprinters over the years, and this is another one. This fellow is obviously a regular scorer over two bends, but just a nice type. Son of Druby Sydney out of Druby's Lucia. He's an August 22, but has a nice record. It's turned into a nice little competition. Road Exile was in second there. Still a bit of work to go in this one.
Yeah, look, sprinting, there's no room for error. So even if you're like 1830 could win this final, even though we've seen an 1812. But just to touch on Satin Milo, yeah, a lovely dog for Con Guiney. And yeah, I agree with what you say about Jacob Tashadelic. Definitely an underused sire. Con had him himself, didn't he? And he's thrown him over all distances, sprints, and up to six bends. He's going to get dogs in the future. And he's a lovely dog. I think he's at 13 starts now, Satin Milo. He hasn't been out of the first three. It's a cracking record. And then Healy's Legacy again. He's on a three-timer. Very good. Ballinabola Joe had just won the final in Shelbourne, and Road Exile was above my head on the TV, and I was expecting Road Exile to win, but Healy's Legacy was very good, out and gone, and no excuse for Road Exile. So it's going to be a cracking semi-finals, two cracking semi-finals down there next week.
Yeah, unbelievable. Good racing down at Limerick. Two wonderful semi-finals to look forward to. And of course, the final of the Time Club Derby. €20,000 to the winner. As Barry said, that's the type of final they wanted, that it's wide open, but it's also not packed with big names. Like, this wasn't one of those competitions where, we'll leave this dog off for a few weeks and comes in with a sprint run or two. Like, this is a proper A4 competition. Like 28.72 plus 10, 28.82. No surprise to see that winning a heat of it. And isn't it great that it's going to be such a wide open final? And it should be a cracking occasion, and well done to all involved. I just want to finish off by mentioning the Eamon and the Eamon and Eddie Eamon and Paddy Carroll. Excuse me, God, I'm after writing it 15 times in the last 2 days, and I couldn't remember. Eamon and Paddy Carroll Memorial was on at Dundalk the other evening. And just there was a big run there by Rolo Tokyo, won the first heat in 28.45. Coulivanny Hoffa out of IOU penalty, sadly passed away last week. IOU penalty. What a star she was on the track. She was what you would describe as a character, Barry. I know that Mark Keatley, who trained her in the UK, believed that she could finish on top of dogs in an A4 or against the very best of greyhounds in the very top company. She was a little bit kinky, but I'll tell you one thing, she threw some stars. Obviously, Randolph Scott's won this year's Easter Cup. Trinity Jr. was a dog of a lifetime. He just seemed to make every final he went for. He won a Champion Stakes. He was in the final of a juvenile derby, a Ledger, ran very well in derbies and whatnot. And this is the latest of them. There's two more litters on the ground, but just want to... I've written a little something about her this morning. It's up there online if you're watching this. So just want to say, hard luck to the Slevin family on losing their star. She was more than just obviously a good brood bitch or a racer for them. She was a family pet, much like every greyhound is for everyone watching this. So just wanted to give that a mention. Rolo Tokyo. Fully enough, Barry Slevin had told me before this competition, keep an eye out in Rolo Tokyo. This dog can run a bit. And he certainly can. He made his four-bend debut in the opening round, 28.73, and does 28.45 the other night, doing 2.64 at Dundalk, Barry. So if we can take a length or two off that, all of a sudden you have a proper greyhound. And he's only had the 5 starts, so clearly very talented, son of Coulivanny Hoffa. Anything to add, Barry, before we say goodbye, except for up the dubs?
Up the dubs, up Spurs. No, that's it. I'll just give you a word of warning. Sunshine Sue was quite hard to say in commentary, so just beware there on Saturday night. And now that I have that little seed planted in your head, the pressure's on.
It's not as bad. There was one in Harold's Cross years ago called Access Express, right? And every time it ran, I used to actually back. It just used to come out the side. It was awful. It was horrendous. But it's not as bad as the night. There was 6 dogs. It was around the time Top Honcho was the main man. But also there was a few head honchos around. And honestly, there was 6 dogs in Harold's Cross one night. And one was Honcho Poncho. And then there was something Honcho. And then there was another one, Honcho. And there was 5 or 6 dogs with Honcho in their name. And at one point, I actually stopped and giggled during the race. It was that bad.
Just go back to 6, lead 5 and 4. Then we have 3, 1 and 2.
Yeah. I have no problem with Sunshine Sue. No problem.
I was more concerned. I was saying to myself, Sunshine Sue, that would catch me out, and I was more concentrating about calling Sunshine Sue. It was a he, and then at the sprint box it was a she. At the third bend it was a she, and when they were past the line, he wins well. So I misgendered him about 4 or 5 times. I do apologise.
There was a dog called Aviation something or other, House Cross. He about 83 pounds. For some reason, I just
Aviation
had him in my head.
display,
I had him in my mind. He was a bitch, and for like a
aviation
year, I was calling
display.
him a bitch. Anyway, big 83 pounder. Anyway, Barry, we've been told to wrap it up. So that's it. Done and dusted. Up the dubs. We'll see you at Shelbourne Park over the weekend. But that's it, folks, from Talking Dogs on this Monday. I hope you enjoyed our whirlwind tour of Ireland and all the wonderful racing. More wonderful racing coming up in the coming weeks. We're really into the thick of it now. So stick with us here, Talking Dogs on the Monday. We'll be back. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, check out Barry Drake's podcast on Thursday. That's it. My thank you to the Bold Warrior Barry Caul. Up the dubs. And we'll see you next time. Good luck. God bless. See ya.
This podcast was brought to you by Greyhound Racing Ireland.